Hi folks, me again with some thoughts on one of the most troublesome questions that face people who have newly left the Watchtower movement. The Watchtower hands down to us a quite difficult legacy. Some really tough questions face the new ex-witness. One of the worst is concerning family and friends. Will my family disown me now that I'm no longer a witness? How can I, if at all, avoid losing my friends? And these can be so difficult that it can lead to thinking, well, should I go back? Before we make that unfortunate decision, though, let's look at this systematically. And I hope this will be a bit of a helping hand for folk who are trying to make their way towards real freedom. What are the possibilities with respect to family and friends still within the Watchtower movement? Let's consider the possibilities of relationship between witnesses on the one hand and ex-witnesses on the other. Now we can identify a broad spectrum of commitment to the Watchtower movement among witnesses. At the upper level, we have the leadership, the elders, local, and above that. And then immediately below them, we have the rank and file, what we might call the mid-level. And a lot of these are going to be just as committed to it as the elders and above. Many of them will indeed be aspiring to attain that level of becoming an elder. But lots will be content to just carry on as faithful Jehovah's Witnesses, taking the leadership that's handed down to them. There's others, though, who we might describe as being on the edge. Those who are newly interested, but also lots of people who've maybe even grown up in the movement and never quite felt that they fit. Many of these might indeed be ready to break free themselves. Many, though, will just go along with the with what's required of them, with perhaps no great zest or zeal, but nevertheless, they are quite definitely Jehovah's Witnesses. Then on the other hand, we have those who have left. And we've got a similar range of commitment there at the at that top upper level there, roughly, very roughly corresponding with the leadership of the Watchtower movement. We have the active ex-witnesses, those who put a lot of effort into opposing the Watchtower, who maybe post YouTube videos like mine here. Put a lot of work into trying to persuade people to see how how wrong the Watchtower movement is and try and persuade them to come out of it. But then there's a great wide band of ex-witnesses who are quite definitely full outsiders, but they're not vocal about it. They don't put lots of effort into opposing the movement. They're quite content to continue with new lives in freedom, with other interests, other pursuits. And then there are those who, well, they've stepped out of the Watchtower movement, but they are still, well, unsure. These are the ones who perhaps can't perfectly articulate the reasons for leaving, but they know it's not right. They were bullied. They should never have been bullied. They suffered abuse. They should never have suffered abuse. There's something distinctly wrong with the Watchtower, but they can't particularly vocalize it. They just want to be free of it. These perhaps are the ones who maybe come to that position where they think, oh dear, should I go back to make life easier? Well, let's consider how these relate to each other. Consider the upper level of the witnesses, the elders, the leaders, and how they might relate, if at all, to ex-witnesses. Well, at the elders level, there's not going to be any scope for continuing relationship with the active anti-Watchtower person, the person devoting a lot of energy now to opposing the Watchtower. Well, they're hardly going to have anything in common with the folk at the leadership of the Watchtower. And even folk who are fully outsiders, who are not vocal about it, well, there's little scope there for any sort of relationship with people at the uppermost levels of the Watchtower. And then there are those who, well, are on the edge. Can they maintain any sort of relationship with the elders, the leaders? And the answer there surely has to be only with a view to reinstatement. The elders might reach out to those people to see if they can persuade them to come back. Or on the other hand, those unsure people may reach out and want to review with an elder their position. Where do they go? Stay out? Go back? What do they do? Well, that probably is the only kind of relationship they could have with there could be between the elders and an ex-witness. Consider the mid-level. The mid-level witness. Well, just as firmly, they're not going to want any sort of relationship with someone who is an active anti-Watchtower person. Nor indeed are they going to want very much to do with those who are outsiders, even though not vocal. Maybe just necessary contact, essential business, but precious little more than that. Those who are on the edge, those who are unsure of their position outside of the Watchtower movement, maybe the mid-level witnesses will find it possible to continue some sort of relationship with them, but it is going to be only minimal. So we come to those on the edge of the witnesses, and those who we might describe as on the edge of the ex-witnesses. Again, there may be possibility of some kind of relationship, but it's going to be based on essential business. Can we add that it might be on the basis of some sort of shared interests. Question is, who defines what's basic necessary contact? What minimal contact is actually going to be possible? Well, let's see what the witnesses would think about that. Basic necessary contact is only for pursuing essential family business, essential work-related business, perhaps. But always they will want to keep a safe distance from any bad influence. The ex-witness, on the other hand, well, let's say they want to pursue shared interests with former witness, friends, family. What counts as shared interests, though? They may want to persuade their former friends to think again and leave the watchtower. But as soon as there's any hint of them doing that, well, the barriers come up. So we have to say, does this really offer any hope of continuing meaningful relationship? And I want to say quite firmly, yes, it does. Let's consider how it might be possible. So, what motivation can there be for continuing contact? The witness says essential business only. The ex-witness says, okay, essential business and shared interests. Well, shared interests could be just family business, work matters, so on. But could there be something more? Maybe we have to bracket that out with a question mark. Shared interests with our former witness friends. The ex-witness, it may be to persuade that friend to leave. Come and join us. Come and join us. Enjoy the times we spent together when we were both witnesses. But as we noted a little while ago, as soon as there's any hint of that, the barriers come up. Keep away from bad influence. So where does this leave us? Essential business and shared interests. How will we define that? What possible motivation can there be for continuing contact? What shared interests can there be? Can this mean anything at all? Well, I'd say yes, it can. Yes, let's go and find some shared interests. And that is possible. Think about the interests that you would have had as a witness that you had to put to one side because you had to devote all your time and energy to watchtower business. All the things you would like to have done, liked to have learned to play a musical instrument, liked to have got involved with theatre, with the arts, wanted to play sports or pursue further education, all sorts of things that you would like to have been able to do, but couldn't, because you had to put all your energy into being a witness. Well, now that you're free of the watchtower, think about picking up those interests again. How can this help, though, when it comes to relationships with former witnesses? Well, it can help quite a lot, actually, because what the witness expects to see of those who leave the movement is someone who will be, well, opposed and actively against the watchtower. Someone who is sliding into the awful lifestyle of the outside world. They'll become drug users, they'll live an immoral lifestyle, and they'll become miserable and unhappy. That's the picture that the watchtower paints of those who leave the watchtower. So let's ask, is this you? Or is this you? Someone who's trying new interests, someone who's joining sports clubs, enrolling in college courses, taking up all sorts of new and interesting things. And as you do that, picking up new friends, finding new friendships, new relationships. And how can this help? Well, the possibilities are actually wide open. Let's think about it in relation to one of the toughest problems in this regard, relating to people left behind among the witnesses. Think of this situation. Two parents split up because one has left the watchtower. The other remains firm. And what happens to the children? Well, perhaps they're spending all their time with the witness parent, and they'll be hearing repeatedly how ex-witnesses, like the other parent, unfortunately, will be really awful people. And the trouble is, if whenever the ex-witness does have the opportunity to spend time with their children who are still in the movement, if at all, they try and persuade the youngsters to, think about it. It's not right. No, think about it. The trouble is then they're confirming what youngsters are being told. People who've left are bad, working against us. And regrettably, it puts up that barrier. Suppose, on the other hand, the ex-witness parent doesn't try to persuade the youngster to think again, to leave the watchtower. But when they have contact with the kids, they talk about the new things they're doing, the new interests they're following, the exciting new things they're doing. And then think about this. The youngsters are back, Kingdom Hall or assembly, and you know how it is. They can get, like we all used to, get bored stiff. Oh, wishing we weren't there. And imagine when the youngsters are sitting in Kingdom Hall, listening to an interminable talk that they've heard many times over, and their thoughts are drifting, and they think of the other parent who is now, doing what? Whitewater rafting down the river, joining a tennis club, doing all sorts of exciting things, going to watch a football match, learning new things, doing all sorts of exciting things, learning to play a musical instrument. And this is what is going through the youngster's mind. as they sit in Kingdom Hall, bored by the talk, the Watchtower study they're hearing, and they determine that one day, as soon as they're free, they too will take up those new interests. The possibilities really are wide open. Become an interesting person, doing lots of new things, and then you'll discover that, well, freedom is wide open for us. And there will be those among our former witness friends and family who will see, because of your example, that life outside the movement is exciting, fulfilling. Welcome to freedom. That's all for now. Bye, folks.